And welcome to Undercover, where we introduce a real music legend, Engelbert Humperdinck. A pleasure to have you at Undercover.
Nice to be with you.
It's been, I guess, 4 or 5 or 6 decades, this career, and we'll see what we can cover off over the next 20 minutes or so.
Well, it's 4 decades and a little bit,
Yeah. When we go back, I think it would have been around the late 50s, where the career sort of started to kick off at a professional level?
Yes, it did. It started, I would say, in 1958. And I used to do shows like Oh Boy and Drum Beat, which was a TV shows over there. And then in I think it's 60, I had a series on there called Song Parade, which with my other name, Jerry Dorsey, which established me in England for a while. And by 62, I got ill. I had tuberculosis, and I was away from the industry for a year and a half. And thank God I recovered from that, and I'm back. And in '65, I had a break, but Decca Records had let me sing for the Eurovision Song Contest, and I won the contest for Great Britain, and it was in Belgium, in Knock. And that sort of started my career. Then I changed my name to Engelbert Humperdinck. And I had a hit with a song called Dommage, Dommage, only in Belgium.
Only in Belgium, which was your first market.
That was my first market.
Yeah.
And then it was silent for a little while until I found Release Me, and that was in 1967. And that started my career. It wasn't a hit immediately. It was just, it was released in January the 13th, and we waited 3 months. And it was voted a miss on Jukebox Jury, which is a program in England. And the only person that voted it a hit was Lulu. I love Lulu.
Thank you, Lulu.
Thank you, Lulu. Yeah. And she voted it a hit. But I happened to be lucky enough to get a show called Sunday Night at the London Palladium. And a guy called Dickie Valentine at the time got sick. So I took his place. And I went on, I sang Release Me on Sunday Night at the London Palladium, along with a couple of other songs. But Release Me was the big target, I went out there to sing that. And the very next day, the song started selling 80,000 a day, 80,000 a day. And the next day it would go up 82, 85, 90. And the highest point it reached daily was 127,000 a day. And so in 2.5 weeks we sold 2.5 million, In 6 weeks, 6 weeks we sold 2.5 million. Yeah? Never happens these days, And of course went gold, and then it was released in America, went to #1 in America, and then around the world was #1.
So it only took you 9 years to become an overnight sensation.
More or less. Yeah. But it was quite wonderful. Quite wonderful when it happened. I was living in a flat in Hammersmith. We had no carpets, no curtains, no furniture, and then all of a sudden, this song comes along and manages to give us the comforts of life, which I really appreciated after all the time of struggling.
Yeah, because you were involved with the same manager that Tom Jones had at that time.
Yeah, Gordon Mills, yes. As a matter of fact, he was the one who gave me the name, and he gave Tom Jones his name, because his name was not Tom Jones, and he gave Gilbert O'Sullivan his name. And so there was 3 of us in the stable, of the Gordon Mills stable, and he did wonders for making our careers spin around the world,
How competitive were you and Tom?
I don't think we had any competition going. Tom was the rock and roller, and I was the balladeer, and that's what he made. Although I was a rocker at the beginning of my career, because my group and I used to sing rock and roll, but Gordon said, "No, you're a ballad singer. Let Tom do the rock, you do the ballads." I said, "Okay," and I did that. And of course it was the right side to choose, because thank God it sold millions and millions of albums. Being a ballad singer, we went up. If you want to know the score, it's about 150 million albums in all, which is really something I thank God for. It was just unbelievable.
That's amazing. Were you always going to become a singer? Because I know you were sort of impersonating Jerry Lewis there.
Oh no, that was when I was working the clubs and trying to get on in the industry, and in order to get work, because I never had a hit record, so in order to get work, you had to be like a musician or tap dance or do impressions or something to work in the working men's clubs, you see. So not only was I singing, but I had to do something else. So I thought, let's do some impressions. So I did impressions of Jerry and Dean and Sammy Davis Jr. In those days, and it was fun. It got me work. It got me work, and it was it's they were great people to try and imitate, and but that's all behind me now. Thank God.
Now here's a little known fact. If we can get a sort of a side view of Engelbert here. Now, Elvis Presley stole those sideburns, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Because I had them at 1965, and Elvis put his on in 1972, I believe it was, somewhere around 71, 72. And the true story is this. He had somebody, they have a fly-on-the-wall person with a camera and things backstage. But there was also a lady that was sketching him and trying to find an outfit for him to go on his world tour. And that's when the white jumpsuit came into fashion, where she designed this white jumpsuit with the high collar and the long black sideburns, and she drew this all in. And she presented it to him on camera, and he looked at it and he said, "Hell, that's not me, that's Engelbert Humperdinck." So therefore, who had it first.
Yeah. You were a very good friend with Elvis, weren't you?
I loved him. I loved the man. When the first time I ever met him, he came to see my show. He came to see my show first before I saw him. And believe me, it took me a good 10 minutes to quieten the audience down once I introduced him. He stood up and he had a cape on, and he opened this cape up as he stood in the booth in Las Vegas with this cape open, like Batman, and the audience went absolutely berserk. And I said, "Shh, this is my show." No, I couldn't quieten them down, not for 10 minutes. So I brought out some of my big gun songs, to try and quieten them, which I did in the end. And he came backstage and he said, "What a hell of a show! Thank you very much, and thank you for introducing." This is how humble he was. He says, "Thank you for introducing me." He said,
"Wow,
Elvis." I said, "Elvis, I can't tell you how I thank you for being in my show." That's number one. But he was such a nice guy. Nice guy.
Well, you've had a remarkable career that's allowed you to work with so many fascinating people, and you're continuing to work with fascinating people.
Yeah.
I know there's a new album being planned for next year with a lot of big songwriters.
Yes. My son Scott has contacted a lot of the big people and songwriters and big name artists, like Paul McCartney and Eric. Who else? James Blunt, and we're hoping to get one from James Blunt.
Yeah.
We're hoping to get a James Blunt song. We're hoping to get one from Bryan Adams. We got one from Bryan Adams, and then we've got from
Cat Stevens. Yeah.
Yusuf. Yeah. And who happens to be a friend of mine in the early days, and a wonderful man, and I hope he sends me a great song. Yeah.
He borrowed money off you at one point, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. In the early days when we were all kind of skint, and he said, "Can I borrow £5?" I said, "Sure." If I think I've got it, I gave him £5. He wrote a check for me. I never cashed the check, and I still have it in a frame in my office in LA. And I think it's worth more than £5 today.
Certainly would be.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have cashed it anyway. He was a friend of mine.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned a new song from James Blunt, but you've got one of the older songs from James Blunt on your new album released, Goodbye My Lover.
Yes, and it all happened like a couple of years back when Scott, my son, said to me, he said, "There's a song here you have to put in your show." And he played it to me. I said, "Well, it's kind of difficult. It's a difficult song to sing." But I took it and I put it on an album called Best of the Brits, which I released about two and a half years ago. And it was good then, but I think it's better now because we've taken it and re-recorded it with Paul Wilshire, and we put it on my latest album because I think it's such a great song. I had to put it on an album that I hope is going to be more successful,
Yeah. So you've just completed the new album release with Paul Wilshire and Victoria Wu, and two Australian songwriters, Paul and Victoria, best known for working with Human Nature and with Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
Very youthful producers. You must have, found a new energy working with people like that.
They're unbelievable because they work so well together, and I enjoy, mostly in my life I've had to do things for myself, think for myself, and try and get the song across with my own ideas. But they're like good directors. They give you direction, and that helps the artist tremendously. And it takes the pressure off, and it helps you to get into the pocket that they want you to be in, And that's what they did with me. And I thought they were fantastic people to work with. One of the best I've ever been with in my life.
And made the album very quickly, didn't you?
We did it very quickly at my home in LA, yes.
There's some marvellous songs on there. One in particular is a favourite of mine, Eric Clapton's Wonderful Tonight.
Yeah, I love that.
It was a beautiful version.
And I'm hoping to get a song from Eric as well.
That'd be nice, yeah.
I'm looking for that, yeah. Because, he's one of my favourites. And of course, I'd like to get one from Elton John too, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Bryan Adams, I'm hoping that the album will be a stinger. Maybe Sting.
Maybe Sting. Well, Sting will be down here in a few weeks. Maybe we should put it to Sting to get a song over to you as well. Yeah. What about with the new album and getting out there and performing songs from this new record? Tell us what you're performing live in concert these days.
Well, at the moment I'm doing the two songs I think that are deserving of being singles, from the album is of course Someday and Take Me Back Again. And Take Me Back Someday is probably the most unusual song I've ever recorded and the most contemporary, and I really enjoy singing that song. I think it's fantastic, and I hope it catches on, and because it's the kind of song that the whole audience can sing with you. And Take Me Back Again was written by Rudy Perez, who was a Grammy Award-winning songwriter from Miami, and he wrote this particular song. I said to him, Rudy, I need a great song for this album, and he sat down and and wrote the song in 2-3 days, and he sent it to me. I said, this is a smash. This is a smash song. I've heard songs that I've said that before with, and usually I was right. Sometimes I'll say, it's a great song, I think it'll make it, I think it might make it. But this one, I've just got that gut feeling that it's got the magic of a great standard, for the next few years.
And we're talking about a lot of the songwriters you're working with. Now, there's a story out about Gorillaz at the moment that Gorillaz asked you to be on the record, and you said no, but that's a false story, isn't it?
Well, it wasn't me. I didn't say no. I had a manager who I no longer have. He turned down the Gorillaz. I couldn't believe, without me even knowing, and I said, for me that was like the most grievous sin that has ever been committed, and it just hurt me badly. It hurt my reputation, because I wouldn't do a thing like that. The Gorillaz, my God, I would jump on it like a ton of bricks, and I'd really like to rekindle that suggestion again and bring it back, and hopefully they'll ask me again, and my son Scott will definitely say yes. Yeah,
that'd be great to be hearing you with the Gorillaz. Yeah, because you've done some remarkable collaborations. There was a very funny one recently in Canada with Slash and Dave Stewart. How'd that come about?
Well, we were on the same TV show, and we were sitting there, and we had a group. We were a group, and I was supposed to be the singer, and they were the musicians. And the word got around that we were forming a new group, which might have been terrific, actually.
Yes, I think I might have spread that rumour. Sorry about that, Slash and Dave. But that story went all around the world, didn't it? That Engelbert Humperdinck was joining Guns N' Roses.
All around the world, and it's just amazing. That photograph is in my home now. It's a special moment. It was a special moment, especially with those two great guys.
Yeah. You did that stuff with the Beavis and Butthead soundtrack those years ago. How did that happen?
The producer of Beavis and Butthead came to see my show in Los Angeles, and he liked my singing voice, and he said, well, you got a sense of humor. I said, well, I guess Beavis and Butthead is a sense of humor, isn't it? But so they said, would you sing a straight song for us? I said, certainly. They send it to me and I'll have a listen. So I heard it, thought it was a great song, beautiful melody, great lyrics, all about lesbian Siwa, but what's the difference? You know what I mean? They have their choices too. So I sang the song, it became platinum, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of pigeons brought it.
Oh, I'm sure, yes.
A lot of seagulls.
Did you do a version in pidgin English? Yeah. No. And you got to share a single with Red Hot Chili Peppers for that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, with that, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, another thing from the past, Jimi Hendrix was once your opening act, wasn't he?
Well, I would hardly say he was my opening act, but what was going to happen? He was already a major star, as you know, and he hadn't broken ground in Great Britain, so their people decided to put him with a name act in Great Britain, so they put him with me. And what a combination that was, you know, this rocker with a balladeer. But so he had the first half of the show, and I had the second. And Jimmy was one of the nicest people I ever met in my life. And the story I have to tell you is that Jimmy did play for me. Yeah, because when my guitarist didn't show up one time, he says, "Don't worry, man, I'll play for you." So I had Jimi Hendrix play for me.
Wow.
Not on stage, but behind a curtain, you know. Yeah. And people must have wondered where the heck that guitar was coming from. But it was like 3 guitars coming at you, you know, the way Jimmy played. What a thrill.
Yeah. You've worked with the Carpenters. They were another act that opened for you.
That was in the early days, yeah. The Carpenters were my opening act, and I triggered their career off, which was fantastic. Mind you, it was inevitable. Destiny was bound to make them big stars, because Karen Carpenter was my favorite female singer. She was unbelievable. I mean, her when she started to sing it, you made me melt. Really did. Yeah.
What about the hits that you've had? And we talked about 150 million record sales, which is an amazing figure anyway. Yeah. A lot of that would have come from The Last Waltz. How does
Last Waltz, Release Me, There Goes Mary, I'm Not Easy to Forget.
Quando.
After the Lovin', it just mounted. I mean, Release Me sold 15-20 million itself, and so therefore they just escalated after that. And I wasn't I didn't jump into the charts. I was a steady seller, which is really the better way to go, because once you still, all of a sudden it stops, but if you're a steady seller, then the numbers accumulate. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Engelbert Humperdinck song?
No, not really. I just love whatever I've done. I've been very lucky with, and I think they're all precious to me.
You told me an amazing figure this afternoon, that you're still doing 110 shows a year.
Yeah. That's nothing compared to when I first started. I was doing.
You slowed down.
300 a year, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
300, and then we cut it down to about 200, and then down to 150. Until about 2-3 years, I was 140 shows a year. Now I'm 110, 190. I'll cut down a little bit, but I still like to travel the world, and to places, exotic places like over here. I mean, and my wife loves it over here, so she always comes. Her sister lives in Perth, so we come over, and I love it here, and so therefore this is one of the places I'll keep coming, I hope.
Yeah, and Scott, your son, lives in Sydney.
But and my son Scott lives in Sydney.
Yeah, and
I just play the world. Yeah.
You and Patricia have had an amazing long-term marriage, haven't you? Considering, the pitfalls of the music business.
Yeah, for 46 years we've been together. Yeah, and she's had we've had our ups and downs, but there goes. So is everybody else in a married world, But I think she's a great woman, and I love her.
Well, 110 shows a year. I know it must feel like retirement to you when you're used to doing 300, but it's a fantastic story. Engelbert Humperdinck, it's a pleasure to catch up with you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.